Well, if it hasn't been about a year since I said yes to another 3D printer review. Mostly because I have no idea what to say, and second mostly, there's not much difference in this ever-ending power creep of resin printers. This printer, however, the Heyge Gears RS Turbo, is full of so many oddball pipeline ecosystem and design choices that I felt obliged just to say yes and have a look at it. While this is, yes, a standard large format resin printer, it was pitched to me on being completely idiot proof, although I nearly pulled the screen off by following the instructions given on screen. So maybe it's not idiot proof, and also that this thing exists purely within a Heyge Gears ecosystem. Yeah, a brand of printer that on paper only works with the same brand of resin. But until you can make actual UV light proprietary, I have my doubts on this claim. The printer itself is exceptionally bougie with dark panels and some tungsten backlighting, steel plates and hinges. This is clearly the shagger's choice of printer. And the resin comes in funny shaped bottles that are referred to as cartridges. So I will, however, henceforth be referring to them as tapes. So without context, the instruction manual tells me to crack open a resin tape, turn it upside down and insert it into the top of the printer. Several million years of human instinct are screaming at me not to turn the resin bottle upside down, but we do it anyway because we're told to. Through what I assume is dark magic, this will then glacially fill the resin vat at the bottom of the printer and will always ensure that the vat is filled to 900 milliliters. Software. Yeah, you'll be pleased to know this is also proprietary. This is actually kind of where this ecosystem does work and shines quite effectively. Yeah, because this slicer software will repair STLs, orient STLs, and pre-support STLs. Or support, I guess. I know some of you will absolutely only believe it when they see it, so I'm just gonna set everything to auto on this Night Models Joker STL and just do that. And if you're familiar with Night Models as I am, I wouldn't trust them to hit the toilet even if they were sitting on it. So I'd say this is a decent test of the auto abilities on this thing. Okay, well, yeah, sure, colour me impressed, because that kind of did the job, no dramas. And this PAF 10 resin, the PAF 10, is malleable enough that the supports broke away without any major pot marks. In principle, these features from the Blueprint software do absolutely work. Now, moving on to today's main project, we've got this biker lady from Haito on My Mini Factory. It's 1/8 scale, has some solid resin pieces, it has some hollowed resin pieces, and for the lulz I am going to fill the build plate each time with as much shit as I can fit on there. I'm going to use the auto repair features because they're there, but not the support features because they're there. I'm printing at 50, whatever this unit is, the lowest layer count that I can, so therefore faster. And I've got the anti-aliasing turned on, which I assume does what anti-aliasing has always done since PC gaming gave us the option back in the day. So we have been printing this model, this very large model. The detail on this model, from what I can see, looks nice. Everything needs cleaning up in the Heyge Gears cleaning and curing station, which I am going to set up next. Print quality, it looks like modern print quality. And this is kind of where I hit a bit of a roadblock with 3D printing videos, because these days I would say if you get a 3D printed model, you buy one from a manufacturer, you buy one at a show, whatever, you do one yourself. If you're printing at kind of like the highest resolution, I say resolution, layer height, there's multiple different forms of definition on these things, and they're all kind of vaguely proprietarily named between different manufacturers sometimes. It's rare that you will see layer lines or evidence of 3D printing to a degree. Yes, 3D printing stuff has sometimes, okay, fair enough, a lot of the time it has design elements that are factored around the way that it's going to be manufactured, which is 3D printing. Common design philosophies and traits that they share with each other. But from a technical standpoint, it's very rare to see those layer lines now, and if you do, chances are more than likely that will disappear once you hit things with a primer. There are times when I think, fuck me, I think when I last did a 3D print review, it was the Elegoo Mars 4, 5, one of them, and I spray primed everything, and then I got everything under the macro probe lens, and I showed that you can't see the you can't see the layer lines, but you can see the pigment, you know, you can see chunks of primer, and not because it was a bad primer, because that's how things look under a macro lens. So to cycle back to my original thing that I said probably about 3 hours ago, like, I hit a roadblock at this point, because normally, conventionally, you would shove these things under a macro lens and say, let's talk about that, let's analyze these layer lines, let's have a think how this shapes up to another printer. It's completely, once you take a macro lens away, completely irrelevant. Unless we're talking like you're making masters for manufacturing casting, then I understand there are issues presented there, and those things do become a factor. But for gaming pieces, display pieces, pieces to paint, it's completely irrelevant. The prints are good, the prints are clean. I think only once during every part of the process do I need to put gloves on to handle anything, and that's to remove stuff from the plate. Because the tank auto refills itself, which is both good and, for the sake of a review, quite annoying. You can manually fill it, but my point is that it's always full. Yeah, so the fact that I don't need to wear gloves is great. I can just walk up, boop the machine, do things on the computer, send it over, boop the machine. Fucking Jesus Christ. Boop the machine, it does a thing, I can monitor it from home. I can kind of monitor it from home. It tells me everything is fine. But then I've had exes that have told me everything is fine. So, let's get this thing off the plate. Let's attempt to move this printer out of the way while it still has a fully replenishing tank. Let's get the clean and cure station set up, and let's actually take a look-see at this model. But not too much of a close look-see. So the curing station that goes with this little setup is suitably bougie to fit the entire lineup, with a funky reflective foil lining inside to bounce as much light around as possible. Upon activation, the cure station asks me if I want to connect to the Wi-Fi, which is a frankly offensive question. But if you say yes, in fact, if you say yes to anything on this machine, and you found yourself in the wrong menu, or you meant to say no, you can't go back without going around the back, turning it off, and then turning it on again, which is technically still an idiot-proof solution. None of this stuff needs to connect to the Wi-Fi and the free cloud service, by the way. It's just useful for bouncing prints to the printer. And unlike our curtain twitching friends over at Elegoo, the Heyge Gears software does not record my screen when I'm using it, and the printer doesn't ping a remote source 50 times an hour through my network. Okay, with that guff out the way, I will kind of just summarize how I feel about this printer at the end. but I want to get stuck into actually just making something. And yeah, what a blinder this model is. I feel like it is a rite of passage for every modeler to paint a pin-up girl model at some point. Don't ask me why. And just for transparency, I am pulling everything from your dad's playbook over on Ground Affected. If you've ever wanted to know how to paint large statues with large amounts of flesh, then check out the link to his channel somewhere down below and enjoy the journey. Key takeaways here are that we start with a dark pinky purples as a thin base coat over our black primer through the airbrush. Next, I take a tanned flesh tone and almost shoot it like a zenithal highlight across the skin. A generous zenithal highlight, that is. Then I take my brightest skin tone and do the same, but being less generous. Aiming for the shoulders, but hitting some of the arm around it, kind of thing. Spitting from the airbrush is kind of alright here. It'll simmer down as it dries and then act more like skin blemishes and mottles, to be honest. For this boiler suit, I'm going somewhere between Michael Myers and the heavily distressed denim look. Starting off with a nice dark blue base coat. And then steadily moving up the blues and hitting it from a higher angle to get some light and shade values in there. When denim gets really worn down, it starts to turn white, yeah. But also some of the dyes start to run and bleed and shift into kind of like a pale pink colour. So we're getting a bit of that in some areas and edges. Okay, on to cheat mode, because airbrushes are not cheating. We're going to take a little bit of sponge. We're going to take an electronic component grabber and grab the little piece of sponge. Smaller than this one, that's too much sponge. And then using the sponge again, we have got some dark brown on there, which is going to serve as just all kinds of generic dirt and mud on our model. And we can just have a little dabble everywhere, because, you know, if you're motorcycling half naked through the apocalypse, you're going to get a bit dirty, aren't you, dude? Yep, can confirm, eyes are much easier at 1/8 scale, yeah. Base coat of pink on the eyes, then a couple of thin layers of white over the top, leave the corners of course, but then just dot them black for the iris and pupils. That is the first time I ever actually enjoyed painting eyes, by the way. Okie smoky, so I have 2 hours to do the bike, as John Trump Change wants to take the camera out to, like, I think it's his train spotting group's Christmas party or something in town. So I basically just throw things at this until it feels done. first spray on some metallic rusty colours, then dry brush from black to mid-brightness metallics. I'm going to hit it with some decals that I found in Kidsland in Osaka. People like to comment on what dark magic that I'm using not to get rips and tears in my decals when I yank them off the paper like this, where it's just like all other Japanese hobby products. It's just better than everything else. That's sadly the only answer I've got for you. It's just better product. Cheat mode engaged because airbrushes and sponges aren't cheating. Dirty down rust, applied with all the precision of a Stone Age anaesthetist, which dries very quickly. I suspect my bottle has passed its sell-by date, but it's actually just kind of working better now, so just leave this fucking thing in a drawer for 3 years, and then you can use it. Once dry, you can reactivate this with water and a stiff brush and chip away at all those harsh stop-start edges that we're seeing, making the rust feel a little bit more organic. For a final touch on the models themselves, I've got some enamel washes on the go, enamel being chosen purely because if it's left to its own devices, it can make for some really nice blends, just left be, really. And when they've dried, we can get a little bit of white spirit on a makeup sponge and remove it from the areas we don't want. And we can carve out little fun oil streaks and dirt marks on it, which is nice. Base-wise, well, I just did whatever I could do in 20 minutes, to be honest, at least on camera. So we get some pine bark on there, or lizard tank bark, whatever you want to call it. Some gravel from Gatehouse Gaming. Some tin foil for ground undulations. Then blast some sand on there. I have no idea where this came from, but I assume it is Geek Gaming Scenic stuff. And my usual rubbing alcohol to soak it through, to lock everything in place, sort of. And since I lost my pipettes somewhere and I haven't got time, I'm just going to pour the watered down PVA straight onto the base from the bottle because, yeah. Chump Change was literally stood in the doorway staring at me for his camera, so that's why. Fun little project overall. So yes, I do need to say what my overall opinion on the printer is. Well, this thing I feel is made for folks who want to 3D print things and don't really want to learn the ins and outs of 3D printing. The ins and outs of which I'm not sure, but that's probably a byproduct of reviewers whose hobby is 3D printing, and they tend to forget the initial learning curve when talking about them. And this machine does take some of that learning curve away. Some of it. The ecosystem lock isn't as bad as I initially thought. In fact, I quite enjoyed the levity of it at times. I quite like just clicking a preset resin type and knowing what the printer's going to do. But I'm pretty sure I could find the properties of these Heyge Gears resins on Reddit and use it in a different printer if I wanted, and vice versa. The only real clincher, it's a very nice, cool looking, well built and so far idiot proof printing experience. although I suspect that, I mean, I haven't looked at the price, but I suspect the higher price tag based on the build quality is going to make it a weighted choice against the competition. But I did want to just have a go with it because this printer was made with choices, at least something different to talk about aside from fucking screen resolution, which is the big thing people talk about. Thanks to my wonderful Patreon community, and hello to all you lovely new people in the Discord. I will see you all very soon for my end of year hobby wrap up. Cheers. I'm out of here.